And welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Heather Hansen, Rick Unger, and Dr. Kelly Powers. The Republicans in Congress have a problem: how to fund the Department of Homeland Security while cutting funding to Mr. Obama's amnesty for illegal aliens, making things worse. Senate Republicans are not cooperating with members from the House. Joining us now is Seton Motley, founder and president of Less Government. Seton, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Everybody's joining us from Seattle today, it appears. So my first question to you before we get to the meat of this: do you run the ball with Marshawn Lynch, or was that pass a good call?
Again, we're back to it.
Yes, that was. I saw my favorite meme was Pete Carroll at a fast food restaurant handing a bag to someone and says, "Would you like me to hand this to you, or should I drop back 5 yards and throw it for no reason?"
I saw that. That's tremendous. Thank you for that. And by the way, you're joining us from Virginia. We had the old graphic from our last guest.
Maryland.
Go Redskins. Anyway, so see, House Republicans slammed Senate Republicans for saying a House-approved bill funding the Department of Homeland Security and reversing President Obama's executive actions on immigration was dead in the Senate. Infighting again. This is not good if you're a fan of the GOP.
Well, it's not good if you like actually accomplishing anything. The establishment wing of the Republican Party is winning in the Senate, and it's unfortunate because I've actually had this discussion with several people who work on the Hill. My argument would be going full on to try to stop amnesty, including potentially shutting down the government, or doing what the Senate Republicans are currently doing, which more accurately reflects what people voted for in November. I would argue stopping immigration would be.
Seton, it's Rick Unger, man. I got to ask you a question. Don't even you find it a little bit surprising that 6 weeks into the new Congress, you now have the Republicans in the House asking Mitch McConnell to do away with the filibuster after using it more times than it was ever used during the last couple of years?
Well, the Democrats broke that mold first with the judiciary filibuster nuclear option.
Yeah,
so
but those rules still apply.
What?
That's not what they're asking. I mean, if you go to what the nuclear option was, has nothing to do with what they're asking Mitch McConnell to do now. They want a filibuster to not be allowed on this particular bill. That was not possible under the nuclear option.
No, but what I'm saying is we had the 60-vote threshold for everything, and the Democrats were the first one to broach that subject.
Yeah, now they want to do away with it entirely.
Hey, Seton, Joe Concha again. You think as a result of all this that we're going to see a government shutdown?
No. John Thune said right after the House passed their version of the Homeland Security with the February 27th deadline, John Thune in the Senate said we're not shutting down the government over this. So the establishment has set its mark, and with McConnell in charge, they're the ones that are going to win, I'm afraid. So the answer is no shutdown.
All right, very good. Hey, Seton, we appreciate you joining us on this Friday evening. Thanks so much.
Have a great one, guys. Thanks.
All right, enjoy your weekend, sir. All right, Heather, and fighting is nothing new between House Republicans and Senate Republicans. So how do you think this is all going to turn out?
Listen, when you even have Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz saying that this can't happen, I mean, Ted Cruz said that the rule is in place to cool the tempers like a saucer cools a teacup. And I think that when you've got those guys saying that we can't do this, you know that you just can't take your ball and go home or change the rules when you're not winning the game. They've got to find a way to win within the confines of the rules on both sides, because there's always going to be a minority.
Spoken like a true
I think that was very well put, but I can't help but point out, I guess, the pleasure it gives me that the very same people who are out there every day screaming bloody murder about national security and national defense, many of whom I agree with, are suddenly arguing to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. You want to tell me how that makes any sense?
Schneidenfreude on your part, Rick Unger.
That's crazy.
I mean, I think there's some frustration because Reid did it with judicial nominations, and that's what our last guest talked about.
Yeah, but isn't that funny? And they spend a lot of time criticizing them. Why do they always do this? They beat up the other side, and then they turn around and do the same thing.
Well, on both sides.
Exactly.
Both sides.
On both
do it.
sides.
I mean,
I
the
agree.
fact that the Democrats thought they could get away with it, both sides
agree,
need
both
to
sides.
find a way. It's like that book, What You Needed to Know, You Learned in Kindergarten. And that's what people need to learn to play by the
with you.
rules.
Or by their mother, right? You know, I mean, I remember my mom always said, you got to choose your battles wisely. And right now, I feel the GOP in the House has to do just that, has to choose those battles wisely. Otherwise, we risk looking like obstructionists. And unfortunately, I think it's a
Not that
realistic.
that's ever happened before.
I think it's
every
realistic
day.
goals of the Senate Republicans versus the unrealistic hopes of the House GOP.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I think that that's
so.
probably the case. They're going to find a way to work it out. They're going to have to. And even if they don't, from the way that it looks, the DHS can still run in a different way if it's not properly funded. So it's not like we're going to be unprotected.
So it sounds like we can all agree they're a bunch of silly people. Let's go home.
Yeah, but they can't. They can't go home.
Oh, but they do go
But that's
home.
the problem. Aren't they on
Always.
vacation next week? So they do. They pick up their ball and they
Yeah.
go home, and they need to stay and they need to slug it out, especially when you've got a majority in both sides.
Rick, it seems like the establishment seems to be winning these battles more and more, right? That
They
the
always
Tea
have.
Party wing, yes, but well, in 2010, the Tea Party really had a lot of momentum, and I heard Glenn Beck say earlier this week that the branding around the Tea Party is so damaged
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they probably should change the name of it,
He's-
right? Like Coke went to New Coke. That's probably a bad example, but that maybe it's time to rethink the options, because it seems like they're getting smaller and their influence is getting smaller, and as is pointed out before, they just sound like obstructionists.
Far be it for me to ever agree with Glenn Beck. However, he's right, and you have to look at why. You know, the concept of the Tea Party. Everybody thinks that if you're more left of center, you hate the Tea Party. I thought the Tea Party at the outset was brilliant. It got perverted, though, by the people who took it over to make money. Sal Russo, are you listening? Right? And this is what happened. And so it has been damaged. And it's unfortunate because they did have something to say.
I think media also played a role in
No doubt.
right,
No doubt.
in the way that they were, particularly it became a race thing all of a sudden. Like, you notice everybody in the, Keith Olbermann said this on MSNBC, notice everybody's on there is white, and then they showed a picture of
I know
MSNBC's
black-
lineup at the time, and it was
I know
all white
black
as well.
Tea Partiers.
But it became about more social issues than it ever
That's
should
the
have
thing.
been. Than it
Yeah,
ever should have been.
their whole mantra in the beginning was all about,
was about taxes.
just balance your
Right,
balance
right.
your checkbook, basically. Don't spend what you don't have,
Yeah.
and that's it. And we want a balanced budget
That's true.
amendment, and that's it. And
Personal
then
responsibility and such. Yeah.
right, exactly. And then suddenly they got into all these other issues, and they muddied
Against
the
gay
water.
marriage and against all of the social
right.
issues that people are involved in, and it takes any credibility that they have away when you start talking about those social issues.
And this is why, you're absolutely right, and this is why I actually had time for the Tea Party at the outset. I didn't often agree with them, but I thought they were making a point that was an important thing to be in the debate. And I was fine with the idea that that point was being made.
And we'll end it on that note. Coming up next on The Wrap, boy, what a transition. We're going to talk about 50 Shades of Grey. It debuts on the big screen tonight. We're all going to go watch it after the show. But some are boycotting the movie. We will talk about it next. This is The Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV.